Welcome back to Veterans Update. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Lisa. We have an amazing show for you this month, and we are so excited to be able to bring you some of the information that came out, to include one of the events that we actually got to attend here in the last month. Teresa, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, Legionville Camporee. That is amazing. Legionville is a camp up in north of Brainerd, Minnesota, and what it is it's an American Legion sponsored camp where they actually work with the Highway Patrol in the state of Minnesota, and they send the young kids up for school-age kids that do the safety patrol on the streets.
Okay.
And they work with them for 6 to 8, they send up different groups within a 6 to 8 week period. And then at the end of the season for Camporee, what that is that's a close down of the camp where they take and do any repairs, get the cabins ready to close for the winter. And Lisa, you and I were there at the ending.
Oh, we had so much fun. It was a blast to see that many people out there and the activities that we got to do. Plus, they had some stuff for the kids during the day. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, and it's the only one in the nation.
That's pretty great. Why don't we see some of that footage?
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Hi, I'm Amanda England here with Veterans Update, and we are here at the Legionville School Patrol Training Center. We are here for the Camporee this weekend, and it is put on by the American Legion here in Minnesota. Let's see what's going on.
Hi, you're with Teresa Ash with Veterans Update. We're here at Legionville up by Brainerd, Minnesota. Great weekend for the American Legion, Sons of the American Legion, and the American Legion Auxiliary. The whole family and all the kids are up here. Right now I'm standing here with Dave Dubrava, an Army veteran. The 6th District has organized a fish fry for us. Dave, can you tell us about the fish fry?
I've been in charge of this for 35 years. I've been coming up here for about 42 years, and I've never missed a year. I've been in charge, like I say, I've been in charge of the fish fry for 35 years. We get everything donated, and everything that we take in, we donate right to Legionville School Patrol Training. Last year, I believe we donated $2,100 from the fish fry. The year before we done $2,400, and this year I'm hoping to donate close to $3,000. And we've had just a super crowd here today, and the weather is holding out. It's a little breezy to keep the fires hot, but we're doing very well. Thank you.
Wonderful, Dave. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and take some pictures, and next year we want to have it bigger and better.
We always look for it bigger.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Hi, we're here again, Veterans Update, and I have Belle Visler here to tell us a little bit about the John Cox Memorial here at Legionville.
Really, John Cox was the department commander, and I don't remember the exact years, but then since he was a brigadier general, he was always there, and he just decided that he would put this memorial up in honor of him. He passed away here a few years ago. So
That's really amazing, and they donated all these wonderful flags, and it looks like they did a wonderful, absolutely beautiful job here. Thank you so much.
Hi, we're back again at Legionville Camporee in the state of Minnesota. This has really been exciting. I'm here with the president of the board of directors, Wayne Gilbertson. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for joining us. Legionville, as you all have been seeing, is a great thing, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to give a real quick brief history on Legionville. It's a program of the Minnesota Department of American Legion. It's a nonprofit educational cooperation. It's known as Legionville School Safety Patrol Training Center. Its primary function is to train the boys and girls in the procedures of school safety patrol, working at intersections and the bus patrol. This land was actually donated in 1935, and there's 610 acres here. This is a wonderful venture, and what I'd like to do now is I'd like for you, Wayne, to tell us what the future holds for Legionville, and tell us about this place.
Okay, well, the program is actually put on by the State Patrol. They come out and they conduct all the classes on safety. They take them on a bus that we have out here. They teach them on bus safety. They go through everything in the classroom with them. And then they have other activities that counselors and instructors interact with them on. Future goal for Legionville is to construct a new building on the site. We're hoping that next year we'll be able to break ground in the facility and reconstruct and kind of recreate the barn that was here. It's not going to be identical, but it'll be very similar to what's happening. Have a place where the kids can go when we have bad weather or something like that. Right now we have difficulty with that.
Sure, this is a great place. Wayne, thank you very much. Now I'm going to talk with Roy. Roy Kruger is the manager of Legionville, and he works hands-on with everybody that comes up here. He actually helps maintain it. Hi, Roy. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
We're still here at Legionville. As you can see, it's a little windy. We have an amazing background, Roy. What lake is this?
This is North Long Lake in Brainerd, Minnesota.
This is amazing. We've been around and we've seen some pieces of Legionville, Roy. Tell us what you've been doing and what's happening and how you maintain this place.
Well, I came on board on April, and it's been a process of getting the camp opened up. Every year we have to open it up, get all of our dorms and all our cabins ready,
Sure.
so we can get prepared for receiving all our kids that come in June. We've got 8 long weeks of kids, and we got about 150 kids each week that come to summer camp here, and we go through our training process.
Wow, that is really great. So somebody mentioned the barn. Now, when we were talking to Wayne, that was Wayne Gilbertson,
Yes.
the president of the board. Now, he said something about a barn. Now, for those of us that don't live in the state of Minnesota and are not familiar with Legionville, can you tell us what the barn is?
The barn used to be literally a big old barn. It was 60 by 120 feet long, and it used to sit right over there, which is now a vacant lot.
Okay.
So they tore it down about 2 years ago because of its age, and it's getting a little bit rustic there. So the goal is now to build the barn back. The barn was actually a training center. It was our classrooms, it was our nurses station, it was our offices, it was our movie theater, it was our fun house. But it's gone now, so we don't have those activities here any longer. We have to kind of rearrange our dining hall all the time every night, break it down, rebuild it so we can have movie night or theater night and stuff like that. So it's really a critical function of our camp to have what we always call the barn.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Roy. Now, is this camp open year-round? Is it open to the public?
This is a American Legion project here. We run the camp for 8 weeks during the summer, and literally those are the 8 weeks that I'm open. But now we have other activities here. Like today we have the camporee, which is a bunch of Legionnaires coming in, and they're raising money to help rebuild our barn.
This has been so much fun, Roy. The camporee has been a blast. You've seen some of the events going on. It's been wonderful.
It is a good time. And after this is done, we're getting ready for some veteran handicap hunts. We've got a special deal with the DNR, and we'll have like 4 or 5 handicap hunters coming up here, and we've got special deer hunting areas out there for them that we're getting ready for. So that's kind of an exciting thing to coming up too.
Absolutely, that's amazing. Well, Roy, thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do. What branch were you in?
The Seabees in the Navy.
Well, this is an Army veteran coming back at you. Thank you, and we'll be back with more.
Oh my God.
That was a lot of fun.
Wasn't that awesome?
It ended up being a really beautiful weekend, except for that wind. Oh my gosh.
Did you catch the wind at the end? It was crazy, but we had to show everything that was going on.
There was a lot of stuff going on just in the entire camp, so
Yep.
it was really good. Well, why don't we go on into seeing what Tom Newman has for us today?
With the 30, 60, 90.
Yep, let's do it.
Hello again, I'm Thomas Newman, Minnesota Department Service Officer for the American Legion, and I welcome you back to Veterans Update in our segment 30, 60, and 90, your veterans benefits, programs, and services information news source on this program. Now, I covered a little bit of information in my earlier segment on the structure of the VA. There's so much out there, federal and state, that's made available. There's so much out there. A question I get oftentimes is, am I eligible? What I'd like to cover is the definition of a veteran for the purposes of VA benefits. Now, while anyone can apply for VA benefits, not everyone is entitled to receive those benefits. In order to qualify for most VA benefits, the person applying for benefits must be a veteran or the dependent or the survivor of a veteran. Now, the VA defines a veteran as a person who served in the active military, naval, or air service, and who is discharged or released therefrom under conditions other than dishonorable. Now, in general, active military, naval, or air service includes conventional military service in one of the 5 branches of the United States Armed Forces. It includes the Army, the Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Traditionally speaking, the 5 traditional branches of service. This can also include service in one of the other branches as a member of the reserves or as a member of the Air or Army National Guard. But these groups are subject to some additional requirements. Considerations and factors affecting eligibility for federal or state veteran benefits, there's a few of them. The primary factors that you've got to at least have in mind or consider is, what was your active duty status? What was your character of service? And in some regards, your length of service. Active duty, in general, active duty in those service, to include conventional military service, and one of the 5 branches as discussed earlier. Those factors, as you give it some thought, one of the things that comes into play is active duty for training among our Guard and reservists. There's a little bit of a difference and a nuance. As a former Minnesota National Guard member myself, now traditionally, when I was put on orders for basic training or to attend our advanced individual training schools and others that typically are offered through the length of a career or years in the Guard or Reserves, you're put on orders. It's some sort of like a training order. There's 2 different types in general. There's the IDT, the ADT, active duty for training, as well as the IADD, the inactive duty for training. Generally speaking, whenever you're in a training status through the Guard or through the Reserves, generally speaking, that isn't countable for the purposes of VA benefits. But I want to highlight something. If you're a member of the Guard or Reserves and you get injured, you're in a training exercise, sometimes inherently some of the training can be dangerous. It's not uncommon that folks get injured. If there was a line of duty or an LOD performed, you were in a training status as a Guard or Reservist, you got injured, and it was clearly documented, that's important to know. That's important to consider, because traditionally you might think, well, as a Guard or Reservist, I wasn't traditional active duty, I'm not eligible for VA benefits. In fact, maybe I went to my nearest Veterans Health Administration to get care and to get treatment, and they turned me away. In those instances, I would encourage a Guard or Reservist, in those limited instances where they were injured, to consider the possibility of filing a claim, specifically with the VBA, or the Veterans Benefits Administration, through their local regional office. They'll go through the adjudication process, and they may or may not determine that, in fact, yes, we find that this particular injury that you incurred was in fact the result of an injury in service, and we can deem that eligible for VA purposes through VA benefits, through VA disability compensation, which, if it's awarded, now your status changes, because now you're an official disabled veteran. So now you turn around and reapproach the Veterans Health Administration as an official disabled veteran. Your status has changed. You're more than likely going to be enrolled into the VA healthcare system for the purposes of addressing that specific service-connected issue. Depending on the severity, you may or may not be eligible for some enhanced ancillary benefits through the Veterans Health Administration, additional highlighted or additional enhanced benefits through the Veterans Health Administration. That's kind of a rare exception. There are many Guard and Reservists, and especially in the last decade in the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, many Guard and Reservists are being called to active duty. That's a distinct difference. If you were a Guard or Reserve member called to active duty and deployed or placed on traditional active duty or mobilized to support a federal mission, more than likely you would have been issued at the end of that service a DD-214, or a discharge certificate. That discharge certificate is so important. That's like a veteran's kind of a golden ticket. It's a key in a lot of ways. Having that DD-214, and traditionally somebody that performs traditional active duty service, they'll be issued one of those. That's an important document. That's the document that in most instances, in fact all instances, you'll be asked to supply and make available, because it shares a lot of information. It basically tells what your branch of service was, your length of service, your character of service, where you were located, special awards. It's the official document that the VA will look at basically to verify your service, and they'll use that to basically determine where the eligibilities exist as it relates to your service. And of course, I've highlighted this and kind of touched on it. Obviously, meeting the definition of having service considered active duty, but also character of service. The majority of service members serve very honorably, and that's reflected on their DD-214. But there's actually a range, basically. There are a majority of veterans that perform their service honorably, and that's reflected on their DD-214, but there are other various stages of discharge. And the other side of the spectrum is a bad conduct, or what would be considered a dishonorable discharge, which, if your service as far as character is less than that ideal honorable, and it's one of the others, there's some special rules that apply as it relates to being eligible for VA benefits. Typically, when you work and you start the process of pursuing a particular benefit, in most instances, a service officer like myself, or a local county veteran service officer, or my counterparts from some of the other veteran service organizations, when you get to us and you have that conversation with us, typically what we'll do is, as some initial steps, is we'll start trying to ask you a series of questions. And really that's for the purpose of kind of trying to narrow in on the benefits that may be particular to your individual circumstances. Again, depending on your length of service, your character of service, and in some cases, basically the character service, length of service. Even I get confused on this here, trying to kind of get through all of this. But there's a number of different questions that basically we'll ask you, so that we kind of in our minds can get a much better, clearer understanding on what might be courses that we would encourage you and we could guide you towards to take to basically get you connected to your earned benefits. Ultimately, that's our goal. But those are the questions we're going to ask. We're going to ask, what branch of service were you in? Where were you located? What was your character of service? In some limited circumstances, veterans may not even have a copy of their DD-214, and they're just kind of going off of memory on some of those bits of information. In which case, not to fear, A lot of our service officers can basically help you take the appropriate steps to make an official request for copies of your DD-214 as well as additional records if need be pertaining to your military service and military medical care that plays a factor in certain regards as it relates to filing a VA disability claim. One of the things that that typically comes up and that I get questions about, and it comes up often enough that I want to really make sure that I highlight this. There are some veterans that are under the impression that in order to be eligible for a certain array of benefits, to include health benefits, but also VA disability, is that they had to have served in a combat zone and they had to have been carried off on a stretcher. And for a majority of veterans, you know, that may not necessarily be the case. In those instances, you know, a veteran will come to me and say, you know, they'll ask the question, am I even a veteran? I don't consider myself a veteran. You know, I've got a friend of mine that served in Afghanistan. He was shot, he was injured. You know, and me, I'd served active duty, but I'd spent all that time stateside. And I'd been in for over 12 years, and some of my service was during peacetime. You know, am I a veteran? I get that question enough that I think that it's really important to highlight that, for one, to disregard that when you look at the veterans benefit system and how it works, although there are certain enhanced benefits and certain liberalization of rules as it relates to elements of a VA disability claim and some other things that that are favorable to a veteran that served in a combat zone or overseas, it's not across the board, and that's really not how the VA necessarily looks at it. The VA, and in the VA's eyes, basically what they look at is, for one, you're part of 1% of Americans that serves in our United States Armed Forces. And the benefit system is set up and arranged in a way that it's really a show of appreciation for your service. Relative to filing a VA disability claim, the VA, and through their eyes, they're basically going to look at you as an individual veteran, and they're basically, again, following the rules and the laws as they're set forth in the regulations that dictate VA benefits. Is they're going to determine, for one, again, what was your length of service, what was the character, and as it relates to any entitlement for health benefits or VA disability compensation, they're going to say, look, you entered the service whole and complete and healthy. You were in the active military, and inherently there are a lot of occupations and things and elements to serving in the military that is so unique that it's not uncommon that veterans are going to have or may have had exposures, injuries, other incidences that directly affected their health. And in those regards, it doesn't really matter where you served, if it was all stateside or overseas or in a combat zone. All of the above or none of the above. Basically, you went into the military whole. What was your status while you were in the service? And what was your status up to a year after you had separated from the service? As any of that would relate to your health, provided there's a reasonable belief, and ideally any treatment while you were in the service. In instances where your health was affected, the VA encourages you, if you've got a reasonable belief that you've got a current health condition or could likely get a diagnosis for a health condition that you believe is related to your time in service, you are actually encouraged to file a claim with the VA. So the VA can go through the process of beginning to determine if, in fact, you've got a current health condition, what its severity is, and whether or not, through evidence, and typically that's something your service officer can help you with, is found to be connected to your service. If that's the case, and you've got a current health condition, the VA basically adjudicates and develops your claim, and they conclude that, yes, you're right. In fact, you've got current health conditions found to be the result of your time in the service. They're going to award service connection for those particular conditions, and that's so important for our veterans to know and understand. Veterans that reach that status and become an official disabled veteran, having reached that status now, that basically there's an array of different possibilities in terms of things now that are going to exist to that veteran to get them better, to compensate them to the degree that it has an effect on their ability to maintain a livelihood post-military. It's also going to give certain assurances as it relates to that veteran now turning around and accessing the VA healthcare system to address those medical issues and to make sure that, to the extent possible, that those health issues or deficiencies are corrected and improved upon to ensure that our veterans have as close to a complete quality of life as it relates to health as possible. And so you really kind of got to look at it in those terms and not sell yourself short and not be closed off to the ideas of what you may be eligible for based on your service, because you've got to look at your individual circumstances, but then be patient enough to know or to realize that if you work with a service officer to start the process of putting into place benefits that you're entitled to, again under law, that you're doing that correctly and that you're pursuing it because they're there for you. And we can have all the benefits in the world if our veterans aren't accessing those that they've earned. They go to waste, and they're not being made use of, which we don't like to see. So on this segment, basically, we covered a little bit about character of service, veteran status, and eligibility for, or at least some initial eligibility requirements and criteria that you should have in mind and keep in mind as you apply more specifically into the individual benefits that are available. In these two segments, I know I was very broad. I know that in the time I didn't possibly have enough time necessarily to cover all the little nuances to it all. But again, it was intended to give you kind of just a broad overview. As we cover or get into more specific benefits, we're going to start kind of getting it a little bit more detailed in terms of what the specific benefits are, eligibility, and how to apply. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to our next segments on our 30, 60, and 90. Thanks.
What great information.
He's always filled with so much information, and the knowledge and the resources that are out there, it's just, it astounds me. And sometimes it's overwhelming. And to have somebody like Tom that can guide you to where you need to go, that's a real relief.
Yeah, he's a really good person to talk to, really good person to have on this show, great resource.
Absolutely.
So, what do we have coming up next?
Oh, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Mail Call. We have wonderful questions with veterans that email us all the time with questions that they have that we can help them answer. You may find information on this one happens to be the GI Bill. We help veterans all the time and give them the information they need. The GI Bill is here to help veterans who are looking to still get an education. You may find information in many places. You may find the GI Bill information at iava.org, or you can go to your local Veteran Service Officer for more info and who can answer so many questions that you may have. You will also get lots of great tips and information from our segment of 30, 60, 90 with Tom Newman. Thanks, and join me for another time of Mail Call.
Wow, that was really cool. It's always exciting when we get emails from our viewers.
Absolutely, and you know what? Just be on the lookout for that email. It'll be some good information for you. Good information for everybody, all the rest of our viewers too. So
absolutely, and don't ever forget, Veterans Update's a 501c3. We do take donations.
That was true. That's very true. So, well, that is the end of our show this month, and we are so happy that everybody was able to join us. Please, if you have any emails, any other questions, be sure to email us and find us out on Facebook, and we look forward to seeing you guys next month. Thank you so much.